Well, welcome to TikTok with Laku. I'm Laku Chidambaram. Elaine Hamm, she is the CEO of Ascend BioVentures, a pharmaceutical accelerator company. Now you might be wondering what that is, and we'll ask her that. And prior to this, she was an inventor. She is a patent holder. She's an entrepreneur. She was a consultant. She was a director of technology transfer. She was a VP of research and operations. She was the COO. So she has a lot of titles, a lot of success. And on top of it all, she has a PhD in microbiology. And you're not going to believe this. She has a postdoc in infectious diseases. So this is the person for our times right now. And I understand it's been a very interesting journey. And I'm going to turn it over to Elaine to tell us a little bit more about her journey to this point.
Oh, that's perfect. I mean, that kind of is half my bio right there. So I think you did a great job. I think I'll just, wrap it up now.
All right.
No, I mean, it's a journey. I kind of laugh every time I hear those different titles that I've had and the different roles I've played, because I never would have thought I would have done any of those things. I started out as a piano performance major, and so to hear a PhD in microbiology and a postdoc in infectious disease is pretty amusing. But it's been a very unplanned journey, to be quite honest, to where I am today. And I know that I won't be doing the same thing in 5 years too. So, and I think it's that sort of attitude that has helped me do all of those different things. Of course, it all looks nice and neat when I put it on a resume, but the truth of the matter is most of the time I didn't know what I was doing. So that's helpful.
Music major to to microbiology. How did you make that leap?
It's like a natural transition, right?
Yeah, right. Really.
A lot of those courses transferred. No, they didn't. Well, honestly, I got a scholarship to go to OU to do piano performance, and I had an interest in science, particularly in microbiology, but my area was in piano. So, but unfortunately, I hurt my hand, and so it made it very difficult for me to play piano at that level. I mean, I still, on the other side of this camera is my piano, which I play still, but it's to do it at the collegiate level was just way too challenging. So sadly, the reason why I wanted to be a microbiologist is that I saw the movie Outbreak.
Oh.
And I thought, that's exactly what I want to do. This sounds great. I want to go to these hot zones and put on level 4 biosuits and work in a lab. I would be terrible at all of those things. I'm quite clumsy, and so in the lab. So I went from bio level 4 dreams and aspirations to bio level 2. So which was appropriate. So.
Yeah, right. And so and I noticed. I mean, I love the phrase that you'd use. You said, when I looked through your bio, it's a jungle gym, not a ladder.
Yeah.
So would you care to elaborate on that, Elaine?
Yeah, it was quite a switch for me. I didn't always think of it that way. In fact, in high school and even college, it was very much, and even in grad school, I thought I had this very progressive career pretty much laid out. Because even when I was in grad school, I thought I was going to go be a professor, and that's a very prescribed career. And I realized quickly that it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And most of my jobs were either lateral, and some of them were even down a bit, just because I wanted to learn a new skill set, and because I didn't understand that field quite as well as others, I had to take a step down the ladder in terms of title, but quickly could go upward because I took the time to learn something brand new. So even though it took a cut in pay, so.
Right. Yeah, and that's such a great segue to the focus of this webcast, right? So, and as we were talking earlier, my motivation in understanding what makes people tick, people like you who have been successful in a variety of different areas, right, was really spurred by this book called Flow by a famous psychologist called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who essentially talked about, and I'm oversimplifying, two dimensions. One is successful people like yourself go after challenges and skill up to meet those challenges. And so motivation to perform well, to succeed, is intrinsic. And so he described this as being, as flow, kind of being in the zone, when time really kind of stops and you do what you love, and that, you know, brings great success. So those are the two aspects I'd like to explore a little bit more with you, Elaine. What is the, let's just say, one of the biggest challenges you've gone after, let's say, in recent times? And the second follow-up question to that is, you know, how have you skilled up or prepared to meet that challenge?
I think I sort of had two pivotal moments. One is when I left the bench, which was probably the scariest moment for a scientist, in that you sort of feel like you can never go back. And so you really are taking a leap in faith in your career when you leave the bench that you're making the right decision. The only real way I got through that was just by plowing ahead, to be honest, and not looking back. The other scary point in my career, the hardest challenge I ever dealt with, was when I was part of another accelerator company that we managed a portfolio of startup companies. And unfortunately, those companies failed, and the company was failing too. And so it was really challenging as someone who's actually very risk adverse, and someone that loves a plan and loves sticking to the plan, to deal with that kind of chaos. But it's one of those moments that I realized I'm very glad I went through, because it's helped me in times such as these of dealing with a pandemic and having to pivot so much, and having that sort of chaos around you, and being okay with the chaos, sort of accepting it and finding a path through it too. So those were both very scary and pivotal moments in my life, but it ultimately made me a better leader. It made me a lot happier in my career as well, because I'm a very type A personality. I think a lot of people in my positions are, and it can be very challenging to pivot. And it's very challenging to, you know, I can make the most perfect plan, A through M, and it could all go to heck, and I needed to actually make, you know, plan A through Z, and you can do absolutely everything right, and it can still not work. And so being able to, I think of that word flow in a sort of a different way, of just, you know, when you're in a chaotic situation and it's stressful and there's a lot of anxiety, is just to sort of breathe and know that you're going to make it through. It's just not necessarily going to be how you envisioned it, but you will get through the other side somehow, some way.
How have you prepared, or how have you skilled up to meet these challenges that you've faced, Elaine?
So I think a lot of it can all be pinpointed to, I get very bored very easily. And so learning new things is something that drives me every day. And so whenever I took a new job, I probably knew how to do 50%, sometimes even less, of how to do that job.
You could say that now. You couldn't say that then, of course. But, yeah.
You know, actually, it's true, except for one job. I was very honest. I was like, you know, I bring this skill set that nobody else in your company has, but please be aware, I'm coming because I want to learn the financial side. So this is when I took a job at I2E, and it was on the investment side. And I brought my skills as a scientist and someone who understood patents and that type of thing. But I did not have a finance background. I mean, I was a microbiology major. That was the least amount of math I could take from the science. But I knew it was a point. I knew it was something that I needed to understand better. And so I told them straight out, like, I bring these things to the table, and I'm really excited to learn these things. But please be patient, because I'm not gonna know those answers, but I promise I'll make up for it on the other side of it. So,
right.
But yeah, no, I like to take on new challenges every time I start a new job. And what used to be sort of that scary, anxiety, you know, filled feeling has now sort of turned into a bit of an adrenaline rush in a lot of ways, of just like, I get to learn something new, and that's what really drives me. So.
And what would you think is the sort of the most important thing you've learned, or a thing that excites you the most about the learning? I
guess it's that I can always be surprised as to what type of skill will serve me well down the road. rather than sort of having this prescribed thing that I want to do and want to learn, being open to new things and taking the time to experience those and not pushing them away, not saying, no, this isn't going to be worth my time. No, this is too distracting from what my original goal is. But really just knowing, hey, maybe this will help me down the road, maybe not, but I'd like to add it to my skill list. And I've had many times in my career where I was so glad that I did this random volunteer thing that helped me build an entirely new set of skills that I then used in, a job, sometimes even within the next year. So
That's pretty amazing, and I've heard this from other very successful people as well.
Definitely sort of lends to the point of accepting chaos and accepting things, the unknown. I mean, I had no idea what skills would help me, so it's just sort of, I have a hypothesis that it might help me, and sometimes that hypothesis is proven totally wrong. That's okay.
Sure. So I'm still really curious about this postdoc in infectious diseases and living in this COVID-19, world that we're all in. How has that, have you put that to use, Elaine? Or,
Yeah. I never imagined. I mean, to be honest, as a microbiologist, I always knew that I'd lived through a pandemic. I never would have thought coronavirus, to be honest. I mean, if some of the books behind me, I mean, they have coronavirus is like a paragraph in some of them. And I mean, my money was on bird flu, and I was surprised it was coronavirus. It's been interesting, but throughout my career as a microbiologist, I've worked on these so-called superbugs. So I was working on anthrax, and then 9/11 happened, and then I was studying a pathogen called Clostridium difficile, and I loved. It was a very interesting pathogen, and that's why I studied it, because it just did all these interesting and weird things, and that turned out to be an emerging pathogen that mutated and became a quote unquote superbug. So it kind of goes back to that thing of just you never know what skill set will come in handy. I mean, I studied anthrax and this other bacterium long before it came in and emerged into the mainstream. And so it's been interesting to work in a field that all of a sudden has a spotlight put on it. I'm not in coronavirus or virology currently, but I am in vaccine development. So it's been fascinating as a scientist to see the drug development process speed up at the speed that we're going. It's been incredible and scary too. It's just, yeah, so it kind of goes into my love of learning new things. And what we do is find technologies that we think have a lot of promise and try to shepherd them through some of the riskiest stages of development, which is everything up to human clinical trials. That's where most drugs fail. So we find interesting technologies, we develop a team around them, develop a company around them, and find the experiments that would prove whether or not we think this could be a promising drug or not. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can well imagine. So what's the environment like here in Oklahoma for this?
Yeah, so my company is virtual. So the pandemic did not affect that company, which has been great. And it was business as usual for me on that front. So the technologies that we look at are from Oklahoma, but we look at technologies from across the world. And because we're virtual, we've started working with other groups, especially in the Midwest, to help sort of this big swath of the country that has amazing technologies, amazing scientists, but is often overlooked. And that synergy has been really incredible. So I'm working with a company called Smart Health out of Chicago, and it's a whole group of all these ex-pharma people, and we've done some incredible things in the past, short months that if we weren't virtual, if we weren't able to be nimble and able to operate from anywhere in the world, we wouldn't have been able to do.
Yeah. And it's incredible that you have this combination, right? You have the skills, the microbiology background, the entrepreneurial skills, the leadership skills, and then of course the virtual environment, and then operating in this current world that we're in. So
Yeah.
Perfect storm in some ways. Yeah. So which is just fascinating. The one of the elements in this idea of flow is when are you in the zone? I mean, what do you, when do you get there? When time stops and then you're doing things that you love and accomplishing great things.
Honestly, it's when a crisis hits.
Mm.
It's not anything I would, I mean, it's not anything I would again plan for, but it's when I feel like I come online the most, where I focus in and my mind is going through every possible scenario and trying to figure out, okay, if this fails, and how do we work through this process and the decision trees. I love a good decision tree. That process comes to life for me in a moment of crisis. So I wouldn't say that I love, working through a crisis. I wish we'd never had to,
Right.
but that's when I definitely roll up my sleeves and can have that sort of laser focus. So
Yeah. So no wonder you get bored easily. 'Cause
right.
yeah. So yeah. Well, that's great though. That's wonderful. Just great insight into what makes you tick, which is what the focus of this discussion is all about.
Well, it comes down to problem solving. I mean, I think that's what it all comes down to. My being wanting to be a scientist, my ability to deal with crisis is that I love solving problems, and that's sort of the common thread throughout what I do every day is how do we fix this. So and sometimes we don't fix it, and it's learning from those and applying it to the next project. So if you're too focused, you miss out on a lot of opportunities. And if you're and to be honest, it's hard because we opened a wine bar, and my nighttime job is running a wine bar, and
Right.
if I had in my head of how it was going to be, and we're going to have a crowded bar and people having a great time, that's obviously not what we're doing now. If I held and clung to that vision, I'm going to be really upset most of the time and disappointed and frustrated. And it's okay to be all of those things, but really still accepting the frustration and that sometimes life isn't fair, but how can I move through this and make it through? So flexibility and being okay with the unknown.
I just love that, and then that long view of learning and then embracing the uncertainty and the flexibility. Just incredible lessons, life lessons that will come in handy for.
The most fun thing?
Yeah.
Oh, I am a nerd, so I don't know if what I consider to be fun is what other people consider to be fun. But I cross stitch, I play
Yeah.
piano, and
Yeah.
I head to the wine bar at night. So
Oh, the wine bar. That's right. Yeah, that's come up more than once, I should say. So I'm going to, yeah, I'll certainly chalk that up to a fun thing.
book. One of the ones that have just really stuck out in my head is So You Want to Talk About Race and the Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. So I started an anti-racist book club. So those are the two books that have been the most eye-opening to me. So
Incredible, yeah, especially in these times.
Exactly.
Um, um,
I like comedy these days. I need good comedy. So Parks and Rec is a good one that I've watched over and over again. If I just need something in the background to just relax and do other things and not have to think, that's my go-to. And Unsolved Mysteries is a new one out on Netflix that I've been diving into, but I kind of have to be in the right mindset for murder mystery during these times. So.
Oh, I love Parks and Rec. So that was great. I was
Jeff is my hero. So if you think, I mean, I have binders upon binders just like she does. So.
Oh.
I always think of sort of like, what would my last meal be? And it's not something fancy, to be honest. It's hot dogs. So.
Oh, really? Well, I don't know how that pairs up with the wine in the wine bar.
I mean, so we a good Chicago dog and a beer is a pretty amazing thing. But yeah, I like hot dogs. It's cheap, so I get to enjoy my meal pretty regularly.
That's great. And for those of you that are watching, the wine bar we're talking about is called The Study. And our MBA students from Price College worked with Elaine, which is I got to know her. And so, and it's open and it's ready, I assume, Elaine, for people to come and visit. Yeah. So
the corner of Sheridan and Lee in Oklahoma City in the Paramount Building, and we are socially distancing. We encourage mask use. It's run by a microbiologist, and that's where most of my microbiology skills has been applied these days, is the lab.
That's great. That's wonderful. What a great note to end on. And so I want to thank Elaine Hamm, who is the CEO of Ascend BioVentures, who has been a wonderful friend of the University of Oklahoma, Price College. And thank you, Elaine, and wonderful talking with you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your time.